Welcome to Theory Paranormal Podcast Episode 10. My name is Pax. With me, I have Dalton, my partner within the Theory Paranormal team. And today's podcast is going to be on a bunch of questions that we are going to answer that we've had emailed to us and messaged to us via different platforms. And we are also going to be talking about sleep paralysis / out-of-body experiences. So, with that being said, how have you been, Dalton?
Well, I've been doing pretty good, man. How you been?
Staying busy, living life, living the dream. You know, one day at a time.
Yeah, I wish work would slow down so I can get back on a real mic. I get tired of doing this off my headset.
Definitely understand. All the listeners are just going to have to enjoy my voice a little bit more until you can get back to the professional equipment and hear you and your wonderful radio voice there. So
Q&A night, huh? Questions and answers.
Yep, Q&A night. Apparently, a lot of our listeners really have been chomping at the bit to get some questions answered that we've had sitting there for a little bit. And we always say, here and there within our podcast, if you got any questions, go ahead and email us at info@theoryparanormal.com. And people are definitely doing that. So much appreciated. So
yes, very nice. That's great.
Yep. So before we jump into the questions, was there anything in particular that you wanted to touch base on about the paranormal realm or genre or world? Just to throw a zinger in there?
No, not offhand. I mean, you talked about sleep paralysis, but we can go into that after a Q&A session. It's fine.
Alrighty. Easy enough. So our first question is going to be from an individual by the name of Caitlin. And her question is this. People who are gifted in certain ways are affected by entities or spirits on the other side more so because they have the ability to do things that most people can't. So basically what it comes down to is Caitlin is posing the question, to summarize it. People that are clairvoyant, empathic, intuitive, can touch objects and have memory recall, smell, have visions. For lack of a better phrase, people that are gifted. These type of individuals, because of what they can do, on the flip side of the astral plane or the spiritual side or whatever you want to call it, are these individuals more prone to be interactive and have more action from spirits and entities and ghosts and all of that. So with that being said, I'll let you give your spin first, Dalton, and you can tell all the listeners what you believe on that.
So basically, she's saying people that are gifted have the ability to do such. Is that what she's trying to say?
I believe the question is compared to an individual that's not gifted, because somebody is gifted, does that make that person more prone to the other side interacting with them?
Oh, no. I'm going to say not really, because we've talked about this before, and we've talked about how everybody has a sense, whether it's the paranormal or whether it's energy or anything of that nature, that everybody has a sense that some people don't know why they have it. Some people do. Those, I guess, would be the gifted people that, they know they have the sense or the gift to be able to recognize or be in touch with the other side. But I would say it's, the paranormal is not prejudice in any kind of way. It's basically, like I've always said, everybody's had a paranormal experience. It's just whether they know what they've seen or if they want to believe it or they already know. So my answer to that would be, everybody, it doesn't matter how gifted you are. Now, I would say that people that have a gift or have a higher sensibility of reaching to the paranormal, it might be more frequent for them, if you want to say. But I'm not even really going to say that, because if people don't know that, if they're not gifted or they don't know anything about the paranormal, but weird things keep happening that they can't explain, they could be having just as much of a paranormal experience as somebody that knows they're having it, if you understand what I'm saying there.
Oh, I do. It's about being none the wiser that things could be happening, but they're not able to identify it up front. So, with what you just stated, I'm actually on the other side of the fence of that. I believe if somebody has the aptitude to be gifted in a sense, I believe that is the equivalent of kind of like shooting a flare or a firework up in the sky at night, and it becomes really obvious to the other side, kind of like a lighthouse on the ocean coast. It's dark, lighthouse, flashes its light in a circle, and everybody can see it. And that's my thought on people that are intuitive or gifted or have an ability to do something. I think it kind of, for lack of better phrasing, throws an alarm on the other side, and it's like, hey, look at this person. Because at the end of the day, if you got 1 billion people on the world and everybody's just there, that would get pretty boring. But if you got 1 billion people and so many are able to be gifted, and the other side's like, hey, look at all this, and they see all these little white lights everywhere, and all those white lights are gifted people, that's their in. That's how they can pick and choose those individuals.
I can see where it throws a beacon out. I mean, we've had it happen to us where, we walked into places, and for instance, for me and you, we have to shut ourselves down, because there's a lot of times we go into places and we don't really want to hear or feel the things that are going on. We just want to be peaceful while we eat or while we walk through the store or whatever, because everybody has something kind of following them around. So, but I understand that logic of why you're on that side of the fence, but I just still feel like, again, my opinion, I just did feel like that, I don't want to call it an equal basis. Is it an equal basis? No, because obviously people that they have, or they're psychic, or they're mediums, or they're hypersensitive, or whatever, they obviously know that they feel like they have more experiences than somebody else that doesn't. But I'm just going to say that there is a majority of the people, after you talk to them and they kind of tell you what happens or their story or whatever, they're not like us. So but they did have a bunch of experiences. We've done private investigations with people that are not gifted or have the ability to do what we do, but they still have a lot of experiences, and that's why we're there, to figure out what's going on, why is this stuff happening, and what can we do to help leave the situation at be, or if need be, which is very rarely what we do, is get rid of something. So I think it's I don't really think there's a fine line drawn between the two. I think we're kind of both saying the same thing, in my opinion. It's just, yes, one has more opportunity to do than the others, but on a basis, I think everybody, everybody has the opportunity to have a sense, or a paranormal sense. Anything unexplained is paranormal. So that's what I feel.
Okay. Definitely can get behind your side of it also. I'm an individual that does both sides of the coin. Let's see what else we got here. All right. Looks like we have a question from an individual by the name of Allison, and they want to know, Why do hauntings or other paranormal activity seem to only happen at night?
Interesting question, but like I always say, the paranormal is 24/7.
It's like a good like a really good restaurant where everything else is closed.
Right. Um, I don't know. That's kind of a tough question for me because I've seen just as much paranormal in the daytime as I have at night. Now, I could explain it to a situation of being. It all depends on the place that you're investigating. There is places we've investigated where a lot of stuff that draws the paranormal happened in the daytime, and we've gotten more evidence in daytime than we have at night. Or let's say we've started getting evidence at a point where, say, it was like 8 o'clock at night till 1 o'clock in the morning, and then the rest of the night you don't get nothing. Like it just shuts down. I couldn't tell you if it was because the way the stars are aligned and the moon is aligned and everything lines up in that area to be able to basically kick it in motion, or if it has anything to do with the place itself. I have not really thought about that actually, and because of the fact that I've had a lot of evidence in the daytime compared to the nighttime, so I don't really know how to answer that one.
Is that your final answer there, Dalton?
That is my final answer.
Alrighty. Well, I got a few different thoughts on that. You know, straight up, easy, layman's terms, because things that are like to be spooky go up in the night. That's why it's busy at nighttime. From my experience, I've had equally amount of activity during the daytime and nighttime. So I personally can't say it's because of this only reason or that. Now, if I wanted to play devil's advocate and say, okay, let's break it down in my mind, logically, why? Well, I mean, there's all sorts of theories. You could say nighttime is because of the witching hour of the way the moon is and the tides and the energy that's in the environment. It could be because of the fact of how close we are to the moon or other stars or planets in the solar system. It could be everything from the ley lines and the energy that's around with people. You know, I could go on and on. That could be one reason why. Another reason why could be simply because of the fact of when people are sleeping, that's when innately everybody is at a more relaxed state, which means their guard's down. So that makes it maybe.
Well, we've always said that, you know, when you're sleeping, especially adults, they're more receptive to the paranormal. But I mean, that is the person, you know, is she asking while you're sleeping? Is this why we have more? I mean, there's not really a defined question. It's just more, why does stuff happen more at night than in the daytime?
Yep.
So, I mean, you could have some answers for that, and then you could have some guess what's. You know, I'm gonna guess at why it happens, but
right.
Like I said, for me personally, it's and it's like I said, I mentioned, you know, the stars are aligned and all that.
Yep.
You know, in the location that you're at, or you know, is it raining at that time? Because that's that's a conductor of the paranormal. Raining, you know, river flowing out back. What kind of rocks are around the area at the time? You know, or there's multiple plays in this on why it would happen at a certain time. So I don't. For me personally, I really just can't answer that.
Yep. You know, the other thought process of why is maybe it just simply has to do also with social programming of what people are used to. Every single thing that we watch in the entertainment industry is always nighttime based. logically, it started out like that back in the golden age of cinematography and stuff as a effect of scaring and setting the tone for movies. So people were used to that, and then they associated it with scariness because it's dark, and you don't know what's going to go bump in the night or come out behind that dark corner. So then people became accustomed to that being hand in hand. That could be the placebo / subconscious effect of, well, this is why it's always nighttime. I think ultimately, though, it just comes down to everybody's own personal experiences and what they take away from it and what they have personally interacted with or witnessed themselves to definitively say, okay, well, it's nighttime or it's daytime. I've been to haunted locations. I've been to haunted residences. I've been to haunted businesses. I've been to haunted national parks. You name it. I've been everywhere, daytime and nighttime, and I still get activity either way. So maybe
because you could
I lucked
walk
out.
up to a creepy, eerie house, in the daytime,
Mm-hmm.
and it still gives you an uneasy feeling.
Yep.
So
It just really depends. So
right. I mean, you could probably find an answer, but I wouldn't think that it would be a defined answer of that because, like I said, and you've said it yourself, that we both had just as much experience in the daytime as the nighttime. So, like I said, the paranormal to me is 24/7. It just depends on the location and what has happened there and how these entities want to communicate with you.
yep, without a doubt. So I think in a way, we both have our opinion on this. Or shall I say theory, hence theory paranormal. And
And no pun.
right,
Yeah.
no pun intended. And that's that. So
Well, I have a question that was sent to me from a Kathy in Tennessee,
okay.
and it's pretty good question. I think she wants to know: can spirits hurt you? We've kind of been over this, but let's drop it to sort of a reality form. To me, is that a lot of people think there's no evidence that spirits are real, and that something that isn't real can't physically harm you. Now, I've heard this been said to me several times is, okay, yeah, they believe, even people not like us, but some people believe in the paranormal. They believe as far as there's another side. There's definitely something going on with energy and dimensions and stuff like that.
Okay.
What they can't understand is, how something invisible, sort of say, that has no uh, body or form to it can basically hurt you. Well, as well as I do that, first of all, you got to think about you're dealing with energy, some source of energy, right? So this energy can, if they can manipulate things to move, what makes you think they can't manipulate things to hurt you physically? Now, when you say hurt, that doesn't mean all the time physical. That could mean mental as well. That could mean physical. So there's multiple feelings there to where a spirit can hurt you, but they just can't come out in the public and say, yeah, ghosts are real and they can hurt you, because you'll probably freak half the world out. You know what I mean? It's not something that can be, what do you want to say, publicly announced that way. So that's probably why they always ask, well, for something that doesn't really exist or that isn't real, it can't hurt you. But in fact, we know that it can.
Well, so, yeah. We both have had our experiences. Definitely understand that.
Yeah, we've been scratched, punched. I've been exhausted to the fact. I mean, we talked about even the time before we even got to an investigation, how all of a sudden you started getting sick, or your physical well-being wasn't in the correct spot. We've talked about where both of us have kind of walked out of places and our mental well-being wasn't in the right spot, or that, let's say, like, how I talk about how they attach themselves to me, and I just feel physically drained. That's basically hurting me in a way, if you want to say.
Oh yeah.
And we have photos of people being scratched and stuff. So yes, I would say yes, spirits can hurt you, despite what the scientific world wants to say. Because they always say, like, it's like when people feel like they're spirits and whatever, and then they're going to automatically turn to, say, possession, and then they want to come in and do exorcisms. Now that's a physical hurt right there, because you're doing things to try to get the demon out, which is basic demonic side of it, which is rarely, it's a rare thing that happens. But I don't know. I just feel like, yes, they can. I've experienced it, and my opinion is yes, they can hurt you in multiple ways.
So, as far as it goes for my opinion, as much as I don't want to say this, I will say 100% yes, without a doubt. What I can share, I myself have had experiences to where I've been affected physically, to where I've gotten very ill and sick, such as getting instant food poisoning out of nowhere randomly, to the point of having bad energy attached to me that affected me multiple ways, which unfortunately at the time ended up causing a lot of problems via friends and family. I have known individuals to have experiences with entities or spirits that have either A, manipulated those individuals via psychologically, emotionally, or mentally, or up to the point of physically. And I'll touch base more so on the last part, physically. There's somebody I knew, family-wise, that used to go thrift store shopping a lot and would always find amazing items, usually antiques. And they ended up getting something from somewhere. And they had a dream about a sailor from the 30s. Not a big deal. So they ended up having another dream about this individual. But for some reason, for whatever reason, they were being choked by this sailor. And what seemed like a dream ended up waking up, gasping for air, and got up because their throat was really sore, and ended up going to the bathroom to see what was going on, and viewed and saw physically with their own eyes bruises all around their neck And the only thing I could honestly associate to that is some item this individual got that was an antique had something associated to it or tied to it, energy wise, which drew potentially maybe this sailor. Now, anybody with a clear level mind will say, yeah, you are a few cards short of a poker deck, and that doesn't fly. And I would normally very well say I fully agree with you. But the fact, and I'm not biased, but the fact that I actually got to be a part of this personally and see this really added the level of depthness and realism to it. And it showed me right then and there that even if there is a divider of reality between our physical reality of life and the spiritual side, that if there is an intent and will to do something to our side, that it can very well happen. Now, I'm not saying all of this to try to scare anybody that's listening. And I'm not saying this just to put it out there to say, well, now you know. I'm being honest and forthright and telling you this because this is something I personally experienced. And the very beginning, since the very first podcast of Theory Paranormal with me and Dalton, we always aim and intend to share you our real experiences of what has happened in our lives and tell you exactly how it is with the paranormal. We don't sugarcoat stuff. We don't play games with it. We don't embellish anything. And we don't say things for entertainment value. We tell you exactly how it is from our experience. So, to put a bow in everything.
Yeah, because you didn't actually reach up there and choke yourself.
No.
It's like,
No. No. And just to put a bow on it, it showed me at a very young age that if there's will and intent on the other side, that can happen. There's multiple logical, scientific, or metaphysical analogies and answers you can go into how that happened and why and everything, but we're not going to break that down. The question was simply, can the other side affect you and harm you? So I will say, until I am ever proved otherwise, yes. So
yeah, I agree with that because, I've been scratched on the back, been tripped up, been pushed, and I mean, how do you explain that? I mean, you can't. So, especially like where I've been scratched on the back. Yeah, maybe I could have rubbed up against something. Maybe I did it to myself, which I would never do. But when you got 3 scratches down your backside and you're standing in a hallway, that's 8 foot wide, and you're in the middle of it. I mean, how do you explain that? So it's just people that get scared. I know people get scared and they don't want to, because spirits and entities roam around us all the time. And so once you tell people that, and then you can tell them, yes, they can, they can physically harm you. But and I'm going to say it's not a rare occasion that it happens, but it does happen a lot more than often. And it's actually the only time I've ever noticed it happen is like where we have gone to older buildings or places where the entities have been there for so long that they have enough time to build and feed off the energy in that space to be able to do what they do. Or in the case of your story of picking up something that an object is haunted by
Mm-hmm.
a spirit that might be malicious or something. So, and that object's probably been around that person long enough for them to be able to build up the energy to be able to do those things, like get in your mind and give you these dreams, and then decide it's going to choke you in a way that you get up gasping for air and you have bruises around your neck. And then it's like, what the heck just happened there, you know? Um, but yeah, I mean, it's not that, you know, it's not really that we're trying to scare people, but it can happen. It can definitely happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it can happen. I've been on multiple investigations where, and I don't know why it works out this way. It's usually the naysayers that say, you know, it's their first investigation. They want to see what it's about. They've seen the TV shows. They got their little K2 meter. They want to, you know, get ghosts to interact with them, and they want to. It's fun, and for all purposes, investigating should be fun. It's an experience. It's something different. It's not something you can just go out to the store and buy. But normally, I see it over and over again. Someone shows up, never done an investigation. They want to do it. Try to, you know, lay down the framework a little bit. You know, start off with a little soft touch, explain a few things, and let them just go off and have fun. But normally, by the end of the night, then the person realizes what they're doing is real because they've been scratched, or they have a small bruise, or a myriad of other things, and then it becomes real and it's no longer fun. And that's the thing about...
No, it becomes a reality.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing about the paranormal, though. I'm not trying to say by any way, shape, or form me and Dalton are desensitized from the paranormal, but we're old hats to it. We've been in the game for so long, it's another day to us. But for individuals that sometimes go looking for things specifically, don't be surprised when it comes looking for you. That will and intent matters and means something. So, the reason why I bring
Even
all
your
this up...
thought process.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you could be thinking like, you go, for example, like we talked about Ashley's in Rockledge, and where we was upstairs, and the girl wasn't believing things, and I asked a question about being burnt up here, and the ghost radar said yes, and she kind of was like in her mind, I guess, thinking about, you know, man, that must have been horrible. What'd that feel like? And then her arm started burning and turning red.
Yep, I remember that.
And yeah, and we talked about it in a previous podcast about that situation. But that type of things, this is why, like, we go on investigations and we bring people. I tell them, don't even think about wanting them to touch you, grab you, or do anything. Just keep your mind on the equipment, the questions, and the place, you know, your surroundings, but do not ask them or think about asking them to touch you or to do anything, because like I said before in a previous podcast, it's kind of like a vampire. You're safe in your house until you invite them in. And then once they cross that threshold, well, they're welcome to come in anytime they want. So once you open yourself up, and you might not even realize that you've done that, but once you open yourself up for them to be able to touch you, and they pretty much think they have permission to do so. And I will say it's kind of hard to get them to stop. And it doesn't happen all the time. Like, it might happen one time out of an investigation, but I've seen people, you know, they've walked out with multiple scratches, and that being, and the reason that being is because it didn't come from one entity. It came from multiple entities that are in that place that we were investigating. So once that person opened themselves up to one entity, you don't even realize you just open yourself up to all of them, basically.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing people don't understand about that. So yeah.
Okay.
It's crazy.
Oh, yeah. Most definitely is. Most definitely is. All right, let me see here what else I have for the next question. All right. So many to go through. Which one should I pick next? Let's see. All right.
Well, I have one from Mike in Colorado whenever you're ready.
All right, go for it. What's up with Mike's question?
Mike out in Colorado wants to know, why do people do paranormal investigations or any kind of discovery of paranormal activity for a living?
Okay.
You want to start with that?
Sure. So, for me personally, I've had a foundation for a long time in the metaphysical aspect world with energy and crystals and rocks and different modalities of spiritualism, and it segued into technology and different things with EVPs and so forth. I kind of cover a lot of different bases, but what I'm getting at is for me personally, despite what I do know about a bunch of different things about the paranormal, when the circumstances were right and the opportunity presented itself, I always personally enjoyed utilizing my skill sets and my experience to do an investigation and help a person or family members get a resolve to something that's going on in their life. Because it gives them happiness, it gives them closure, it gives them solace, and it gives them a peace of mind. Being an investigator goes one of two ways normally. It's either, and this is just my theory, it's either A, somebody watches a bunch of cool TV shows and says, hey, I want to do that, gets on different websites, buys a bunch of gear, just goes out and jumps in. Or over time, as they acquire different skill sets and experience, they start building their Rolodex of info, and then they're able to apply that in a proactive, positive way and want to assist or help people. Because, I mean, if you think about it logically, sure, you can take courses on parapsychology and get certified in different stuff. But the reality is, the stuff with the paranormal world, there isn't really any bona fide place that you can go. And it's like, okay, kind of like being a doctor. You got your doctorate, you're good to go, you're official. It just doesn't work like that. So from what I see with individuals, usually it's for leisure or it's for business. Business meaning to really help people. And to bring it back around, when situations happen, I always do it to try to help somebody. And that's just me. That's my inner side, just wanting to do something bigger and better than myself, because I have the skill sets too. And it's never about, let me see how many investigations I can get under my belt, or let me see if I can do an investigation that tops my last one for the criteria, or maybe for how dangerous it is. It's just simply about helping somebody. Because I tell you what, if I had something happen and I was none the wiser, knew nothing about the paranormal, and I reached out to somebody, I would hope more than anything these people knew what they were doing, or they could give me something at the end of the experience that would make sense, that would calm me down and relax me, and try to give me back my sanity. That's all it comes down to. So,
Sanity. Yeah, you gotta. Well, people think that you're crazy anyway, but despite the TV shows and people doing what I call tire kickers, means they get a K2 and a flashlight and they go try to copy the TV shows. Those people there, to me, I'm not judging anybody. It might sound like it, but I'm not. But It's what they are. They're tire kickers. They have no. It's like a hype. If you want to say that, um, there was this hype when the first paranormal shows started coming out, and everybody's like, "Oh, well, I can go do that," not knowing nothing about what they're getting themselves into or how to do a proper investigation. Instead, they want to talk about, well, we had Cheetos for a snack and I watched this movie last night. And then, you watch some of these folks and you kind of just say, okay, well, you're having fun. You got to experience a little bit. But what they don't tell you is maybe some of the problems they might have had from doing that because they don't understand what they're doing or how they're doing it. So I call them basically tire kickers. Maybe that's wrong, but that's what I call them because from my point of view, I've been dealing with this since I was born. So to have no understanding of it, did it mean that because I was doing, astral projection or doing, hearing things, not knowing why I was smelling things when other people couldn't smell them? I'm like, do you smell that? And they're like, no. Things like that for the longest time. I never knew. I never even used the word paranormal.
Right.
So I was just kind of like sitting there going, what the heck is going on here? Why am I experiencing all these things? And I finally ran across, he was sort of a scientist, basically. And he was a guy that was doing paranormal stuff, created different things to be able to try to contact with the paranormal, et cetera, et cetera. But basically told me, he said, well, you're having paranormal experiences. And I said, well, what is a paranormal experience? Like, I'm looking at him like, well, what are we talking about here? Because I've never had the word paranormal come out of my mouth ever. So for me, it's personal. And I don't even want to take it there, but it is. It's kind of personal because I don't know why I've been dealing with this all my life. I don't know why I've been chosen to be able to hear these things and sense these things and be able to figure things out without people telling me when I go into places, or picking up on energies, or picking up on, in 5 seconds of talking to somebody, whether I want to talk to them again because their energy is just off. I don't feel good about talking to them, which everybody has that. Again, they have the sensibility to do that. They just don't understand why. So when this friend of mine, he came around and he started talking about paranormal. It's the first time I've ever mentioned paranormal to anybody, but you couldn't at that time because if you mentioned the paranormal back then, you pretty much you were in the loony bin. You needed a straitjacket, or you're with the crazies, or you're smoking a bunch of crap that you don't even know what you're smoking. But nobody would believe you. So when these paranormal shows came out, it was kind of a relief for people like us. And we could actually go out and do the things that we wanted to do or that we have already been doing and actually announce it publicly, because now it's like the norm, sort of say. It's like, okay, we know there's paranormal shows, and now people are fascinated by it because they realize there is something else. So I guess the question, yes, we use K2 meters and MELD meters and digital recorders and all kinds of equipment. A lot of people do that, and they think that's paranormal investigating, which it is, but it's only like 10% of the paranormal investigating in my eyes. When you want to break something down to the scientific method of the paranormal, like scientists do, then you're getting into being a paranormal investigator. And it's kind of what we try to do at Theory Paranormal, is we try to break it down into a scientific method, and like I said, we do use the tools, and it's cool, and we can say, man, we got a lot of evidence. And we're not scientists by no means. I'm not a scientist, and you're not a scientist, Pax. So you do have some knowledge of from studying and reading. I have my knowledge, but we do lean towards the scientific method. You know, what's the form of energy did they put out? Was it standard or radiation or whatever? What megahertz are the EVPs at? You know, what's this? What's that? We try to break it down into a scientific method. So I guess the bottom line is, I know I went all over the place with that, but it all ties together into why I do it. A lot of people do it because, you know, they want to feel like, oh, I'm fascinated by the unknown, or the, I'm not even going to say magical part of it. There's no magical part of it to me. It's reality. People passed away. We're communicating with their spirits. Now, again, we've also said, is it aliens that we're communicating with that are using ghosts and past times to communicate with us? So I'm going to say, just basically, some people tire kick because they want to get with the hype. Some people do it because it's the unknown. They don't know about it, but they want to try to learn about it. But some don't know how to go about the right way. For me and you, I can't say that we really know the proper way of what we're doing, but we do what we do, and our evidence and our enjoyment of doing it is undisputable. And I wouldn't even say it's more enjoyable as it is for us that we want answers. You want answers for things that you can't understand in your past life, you know, things that have gone on. I try to get answers from things that happened to me years ago in my, you know, past life when I was younger. And I just want to say that's basically why we do it, is just to basically get answers and see what the next thing is. But I will agree with you that the number one thing why we both do it is because we have helped people. I've been to towns that I didn't know nobody in that town, and we've helped people overcome certain things, or help them get rid of something, or help them understand what's happening, or help them move on from a loved one that passed away, you know, within a few years of us meeting them, you know, letting them know that that person wants them to move on. So there's a ton of things why it is we do what we do. But I don't know. I guess it boils down to basically we love what we do. It's not like a hobby or a pastime. It's what we do. And I tell you what, if I hit the lotto tomorrow and I could finance us to do nothing but paranormal investigations the rest of our life, guess what we're going to be doing? You know what I'm saying?
Hey, I like the way you think right there. I like that a lot. I need a vacation, like, for the rest of my life.
Yeah, for the rest of our lives, I would do this the rest of my life, and I would, you know, I would have top-notch gear. I would have, you know, scientists involved, and, you know, doing all that thing if I had the money to do it, but we don't. And that's, you know, that's just what kind of holds us back, is everyday life, and why sometimes we take a little bit to do another podcast, because life just gets in the way. And then when it finds a way that, you know, when the universe opens up and says, hey, you guys can sit down and do another podcast, guess what? We do another podcast, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So here's another question. This is going to be from Lindsay. And her question is, why are hauntings from deaths that occur many years ago so common compared to a new death occurrence, meaning somebody that just passed away recently? As she put, you never hear anyone say, my aunt just died and now her balls of yarn are rolling across the floor. It's always a reference back to 1776, for instance. Old Billy Bojack fell on his pitchfork, and ever since there have been hauntings. For reference, both Billy and Bertha were equally nasty, mean people. So,
well, I don't think.
I think that was.
I don't think they necessarily have to be nasty.
No. I think that was just a analogy reference point there. But that is a fair question, though. I mean, think about it. You always hear about stuff that is usually happened back in the day, but you never hear of a situation that it's like, oh, so-and-so unfortunately passed away, And then a week later, things just started. It's always something from back in the day.
Well, come to think, let's think about that in the perspective of how we investigate, because I'm going to take that off of what we do as a team. So, in my opinion, and you can agree or disagree, it doesn't matter. But in my opinion, it's because most of the things, when you're talking about, you know, Billy Bob's aunt that passed away, or Bob threw himself in under a tractor, and you go back to say grandma's balls of yarn ain't, a week later flying across the room or whatever. That's not exactly true. And you know that as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because we don't discuss our private investigations. And when you're dealing with family members, you're dealing with private investigations that we keep private. We might talk about some private investigations that we do, like we talked about, or like when I talked about the young lady that was being possessed in her apartment. Or we could talk about the first investigation, one of the first investigations me and you did on the other side of the state. And it was these, when we say private investigations, these are people's houses, people's homes.
Yep.
So, where the little girl, she was around there for some reason and threw the bottle of shampoo out of the holder. So, does grandma pass away last week? Well, let me take it back just a minute, because a lot of people will tell you that, they saw their grandmother or their uncle or somebody in the family that's passed standing at the foot of their bed wearing all black or wearing whatever, and basically couldn't understand it. And then the next day, the grandma passes away. Or they had a vision of something that they're like, almost like their grandmother came, let's say at 1:05 a.m., Susie's grandmother came and she had a dream while she was sleeping that her and her grandmother was walking across the ocean, the beach side, and basically having a conversation. And then when she woke up in the morning, didn't understand why that was, couldn't vaguely remember the conversation, but remembered it was her grandmother. And then at 8 o'clock that morning gets a phone call that, hey, at 12:55, your grandmother passed away last night.
Yeah.
And they say, well, was that a sign from her? She passed away and then all of a sudden visited saying goodbye, kind of thing.
Yep.
So these are things that we don't really talk about a lot, because these are people's personal experiences. And of course, we don't like to put that out on air because it is people's personal experiences, unless one of our, if anybody that we've helped before said, yeah, you can tell the story, then we would tell the story. So my thing I'm getting at is the reason why you hear all these things that happened in 1776 or the 1800s or early 1900s is because those are the commercial sides. I call them the commercial side, which means we went to a haunted restaurant, a haunted warehouse. We did a Civil War battlefield, or we did this or that. Things that we talk about on a daily basis. That's why you hear more of that. When you start talking about people's grandmothers, uncles, brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers, there's tons of stories that Axe, as well as I do, that we could talk about that had happened shortly after that person passed away. So it does happen. Nobody ever really talks about it, because now you're digging into somebody's personal life and experience, if that makes sense to you.
Well, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. Okay.
So it does happen. It does happen.
Yep. Most definitely. So with that being said, I think they can occur many years in the past, but I think new deaths also happen. And It's known. But if you think about it logically, deaths that occurred in the past kind of turn into urban legends. There's a history. You know, one person says this, passes it on to that person. The next one says it to somebody else. Next thing you know, there starts to be a little following, or the whole town knows about that one house that had that weird thing happen 40 years ago, and then it becomes an urban myth. So I think that's where the whole notion of, oh, back in the day. Newer stuff that happens, I don't think really gets out there and gets known because it's either too new or it's personal or private. You know, if I lived with a loved one and they passed away, unfortunately, and things started happening, I wouldn't be the one to go put it out there and put it on social media. You know, that's not common knowledge. People aren't really going to do that. So,
No, exactly. That's kind of what I was saying is, you know, they can talk about so-called urban legends or, again, what I call commercial investigations. You can talk about that all you want.
yeah.
But to sit here and talk about, you know, Johnny's grandfather that passed away, you know, even 2 weeks ago, we've had some pretty fresh experiences coming to, like, say somebody passed just a few weeks ago and we've gotten contact or movement or anything like that. It's basically a lot of times, and even though they calm down and they don't communicate anymore, like they're just trying to say, hey, I'm in a good spot, just move along, you know, don't be so sad or upset about it.
Yeah.
So I would say it probably happens just as much as the older deaths that, you know, happen. You just don't hear about it as much because usually, like you said, it's personal or private. It's not something that people want to, you know, put out in the public eye. You know, even the show, there was one show a while back, I'm not going to name it. He'd been around for a while, and they don't really show it no more, but he used to do nothing but private investigations. And for, you know, people that, for you, you know exactly who I'm talking about or no?
Oh, I do.
Yeah, so he was up, I will say in the state of Pennsylvania, but basically that's all that show did was private investigations. But what they didn't show you was mainly personal, like if it got personal, like it was a relative or something. What they showed you was basically a natural haunt in the house. So it's almost like doing a commercial haunt, but it was done in a house. But they have done some shows where it did, to me, got a little personal, and I was more interested in that, to be honest with you, because, you know, that could hit home. That could be someone in my family, or that could be, you know, someone along the lines of another house where my family lives, and something like that has happened with a relative, if you understand what I'm saying there.
Oh, completely.
So yeah, it's I would say it happens just as much. And for us doing private investigations like we have been doing, you know, as well as I do, it happens just as much as it does from the 1800s, 1900s, or even 10 or 15 years ago.
I completely agree. Completely agree.
So I have another question from a Dawn in South Florida.
Okay.
Wants to know, is it dangerous to experience paranormal activity? Now, she's not very clear about what part of it, but she is asking, you know, is it dangerous to experience any kind of paranormal activity? What's your take on that?
I would say it's 50-50. I believe that it's all predicated on the person that you are, what you may be me think of the right word here. What you may be susceptible to. If you're gifted or not. I believe if you are, that opens up a whole new can of worms of how you could interact with the other side. If not, I believe that takes away a lot, and you may not be as vulnerable. I also think it also depends on where you are and the location. The paranormal to me is just like real life. You could go to any city in this country that we live in, and it look like it's a sleepy little town and get mugged. It's all about time and place. That's all it comes down to. It could be bad timing or a coincidence or whatever the case is. But at the end of the day, everything's situational. So you could go to do an investigation in a place that has a horrendous, horrible background and past of nothing but murders and a bunch of other atrocious things that happen. And you go to investigate, and it's completely quiet. And you hear nothing but crickets the whole night, and you have zero activity. On the flip side, you could go to a home that had, a very nice family that was there. Unfortunately, they all met their demise, and they've always been cordial and polite. And that could be the one time you go to that place to experience and interact, and it be something out of a horror movie. So I believe it all comes down to the day, the place, and the time that you go to try to do something. I know that's not really an answer to the question of giving a definitive yes or no, but from my experience, there never is going to be a, hey, we're going here, and this is how the experience is going to be, because it's always been like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And to add to that part of it, excuse me, I'm gonna say like this: is it dangerous to experience paranormal activity? And I'm gonna answer it in a way that says, well, how are you responding to that paranormal activity, and what is the paranormal activity that you are experiencing? Because that would play a lot into, is it dangerous or not? Now, if you're experiencing paranormal activity where, for instance, you're laying around and you see a shadow figure out the corner of your eye, or the light on the end table shuts off and cuts back on, or flickers, or does whatever, but you don't really know that's paranormal. You just don't know what you've seen. You can't explain it, and you're going to rub it off and keep watching TV. Now, if you have a paranormal experience where, let's say, like we've done private investigations where the entity was a malicious relative and became a malicious relative in the afterlife, basically, once they passed and they built up enough strength and energy or whatnot to be able to mess with that person again, that person might not feel comfortable, or might feel kind of weird about, or maybe even be scared of it, what's going on, because of the things that are happening to them. So I would say I'm a 50-50 player on that, as well as you are, because there's a lot of paranormal activity that really ain't malicious or harmful in any kind of way. It's just something trying to let you know that it's there, because it's trying to communicate in some kind of way. It's trying to communicate to you to let you know a story, or let you know what it wants to tell you. And that's where we come in to come do these investigations. But now you have the other people that, they go to a garage sale or they go to a yard sale and they buy an object and it looks really weird and they don't know why they bought it. Some little demon looking dude standing on a rock or something that looks, wicked as crap, and they have no idea why they bought it. They just had to have it. And they go home and they put this thing in the center of their mantle like it's the best centerpiece they've ever had, but it's uglier than crap. So
That explains so much of your living room right now.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Anyway, because it's a picture of you, I understand. That's why
Oh,
it's there.
here we
So,
go. And it started. It started.
it started. But anyway, so
And
things started happening.
and I appreciate that framing that you says best friends for life. I appreciate that. That was really nice of you.
That's, yeah, yeah, that's sweet, ain't it? I made sure they engraved that very nicely for us. So the thing is, is that, you know, they have this piece. They don't know why they bought it, but at the time they're not thinking, I just got to have it. I just got to have it. I just got to have it. They don't realize that negative energy or that energy in that piece is pulling them towards that. And so they buy it, they put it in their house. Next thing you know, they got cabinet doors. They come in, their cabinet doors in their kitchen are wide open. And they don't know why that just happened. So they close all the doors, they do whatever, they go back out. They come back in a few hours later, and all the cabinet doors are open again. And then the activity just picks up and picks up and picks up and picks up. Now, to me, just by talking to you like this, Pax, would you consider that pretty much an ongoing thing that might become a dangerous experience with the paranormal activity?
Potentially could be. I mean, it depends on what that precedes or what happens after the fact. You know, if that was all the activity that was there, I wouldn't look at it as malicious or an endangerment to life or limb or well-being, because it's just cupboards being open. Now, if you walk in there and the cupboards are open, the next thing you know, dishes and cans of vegetables and stuff are being thrown at you, that's a little different.
And that's what I'm getting at. So it may start out as harmless and then proceeds into, let's say, a poltergeist type activity where a glass comes out of the cabinet and flies across and almost hits you in the head. So that's what I'm talking about is you can have so many things that are harmless. And yes, to me, a lot of the things that are dangerous in, the dangerous experience of a paranormal activity is pretty rare. It's not like as rare as you think, but it is kind of rare compared to all the good things that we've noticed in doing investigations. But again, these are things, like the horrible things that happen, you hardly hear about because now you're getting into poltergeist activity. You could be getting into possession or things that people just ain't going to bring out and talk about. So, like I said, I'm 50-50 on it like you are. I just look at it in a different manner. It's like, what type of paranormal experience did you attract? Did you go on a haunted tour? Let's say it's St. Augustine, or on a boat, or, one of these places that give away haunted tours. Did you go to that and not knowingly pick up an entity that followed you home and things started happening? Are they good or are they bad? So yeah, it's 50-50, but I just weigh it like it could become a dangerous experience, dealing with paranormal activity. I would say yes. 50% says yes, it could become a dangerous deal, if that makes sense to you.
It does. It does. It kind of goes back to what I said. It's situational. All depends on what's going on.
Yeah, it's situational on what's going on. It's situational on what kind of entity that they picked up without knowing they picked it up. What kind of object they bought. If you bought a mask and it was used in voodoo and stuff, and you don't know, but you were drawn to it, again, not knowing why you bought it. And the next thing you know, you got a bunch of weird crap that's starting to turn into fear, and like you feel like you're harmed. Like you just feel like, man, I'm going to be harmed at one point. And you call us in and we do investigation and figure out that mask is doing it.
Right.
I mean, so yeah, I'll just say there is some dangers to it, but then again, there's not. So yeah, I would agree with you on that. It's 50-50.
Okay. All right, Dalton, here is another question from a person by the name of Leanne. What can people do to prevent and protect against hauntings? You want to tackle this one
Nothing.
first? There you go.
Nothing.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Hauntings are going to happen one way or another. You know, depending on if you're a religious person, no matter what denomination or faith or religious background you have or ideology, period, you have your belief system, and there's nothing wrong with that. And you have ways and avenues of people you can talk to, and rituals and rites and passages and you name it, totems and deities, all sorts of stuff that you can get behind and believe in, and that's your right. Some people even say that in itself projects power and strength and can be beneficial in certain scenarios. For myself personally, I'm right along the lines with you, Dalton. If a haunting's going to happen, it's going to happen. You know, it's kind of the equivalent of having a dart, like you would throw at a dartboard, in your hand, and being blindfolded, spun in a circle, and then being told to go ahead and get a bullseye. I can't do that. I can't control that. So for me to be able to equivalently say, I have all of these things at my disposal, and this is going to prevent me from dealing with a haunting, I don't see it happening.
No, and you've had an actual experience like that. I mean, you're at Moon River Brewing and you had a stone in your pocket that's supposed to keep them from touching you. And what happened to you? You know.
Yeah, I had a stone. I had a stone in my left cargo pocket, a particular stone, mineral or rock, if you call it. And I remember I adamantly and on purpose made the statement out loud in front of the group I was with. I said, I have XYZ in my left cargo pocket. This will protect me from you. And as soon as I said the word you, it was as if somebody came up to me and put their hand around my leg where my cargo pocket was and squeezed all of their fingers into my leg, and I felt that stone press into my leg. Now, to paint the picture for everybody listening, nobody grabbed my leg physically, meaning a human being. So,
right. So there you had supposedly, this protective thing, and it didn't work.
Yep.
And that's why I say nothing, because, it's kind of like, I mean, we've talked about this before and we're not knocking anybody's religious beliefs or anything like that. Your religious beliefs, in my opinion, because I'm not a religious person, I've already stated that. To me, your religious belief can only hold off something for so long, and it's going to find a way to get past that. It's going to find a way to get past that, the stone that you're carrying, or, maybe that stone wasn't imbued in the proper way. Who knows what the case could be on that?
That's a word you don't hear all the time.
What?
Imbued.
Imbued? Yeah, I threw my college word out for the night.
There
Everybody's
you go.
happy. So, the thing I'm trying to say is, you can tell yourself, and even in our investigations, I try to tell people, don't want it to come touch you. Don't tell it to come touch you. Just don't say anything in that nature. Just, have fun at the investigation, ask your questions, and pretty much we've had a lot of people come investigate with us and walk away with nothing really bothering them at any time. Now, that being said, there's times where we've had people, even myself and you, we've gone in and we've even did the ritual of leaving and saying, hey, you're not allowed to follow us. You got to stay here. I don't give you permission to follow or anything like that. And then next thing you know, we're going home, and for a couple of days, something might play around with us or do whatever. And then next thing you know, it goes away. But to me, that's just something letting you know that no matter what you say, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna follow you. If I want to come interrupt your life, I'm gonna do that no matter what you say, do, or have in your hand. Doesn't matter. So I would say that has been more. That's done more than it not happening, if you understand what I'm saying. So a lot of there's more times than none that this has happened no matter what you have than it has when you've had something or a belief or you spoke to the white light or whatever these people do on TV or whatever they say, and always something happens. I mean, it's just more times than none that it happens to where you say something and it don't happen. If that makes sense to you.
Yep, it does.
So, and that's what I said in a previous podcast that we did. I've also mentioned that, you could bring a tractor trailer load full of all the beliefs and tools and stones and ruins and whatever it is you want to bring. And yes, maybe some of that would work for a short time, or it might work for a long time. It happens. But how do you know what to use? Because, more times than one, we've even had normal spirits play tricks with us. You might have an adult acting like a kid, or, a kid acting like an adult, or, a demon acting like a regular person, or, a regular person acting like it's not malicious, or, it's not going to hurt you just to get in your good graces. You just don't. That's the problem with investigating, is you just don't know what you're dealing with.
No, sir.
And that's what makes it not only unique for me personally, because, I mean, you're spinning a roulette wheel, basically. You just don't know what you're going to land on or what you're going to deal with. So how do you know how to protect yourself, or how do you know what to say to protect yourself from that? But let me tell you something. That's not the only thing that's there, because you probably got 50 other things lined up in that place to come mess with you also. So you might get this one entity to leave you alone, but what about the 50 other ones that are standing in that same room with you wanting to pounce on you? How do you deal with that?
I would imbue myself with positive energy. See how I did that there? I used my college word for the night too.
That's right, imbued. You imbued yourself. It's I'm just trying to say, what, has there been, because I don't know of anybody in the professional paranormal world that's ever explained that, that's ever said. Now they've hit like, okay, we're going to say a prayer before we go into this building. And, who did that? Yahoo did that. You know who I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
They used to do that all the time, and they went to a certain place and investigated, and what happened to them?
Yep. Well, the thing is,
so
at the end of the day, or the beginning of the day, or in the middle of the afternoon, because I usually say at the end of the day, anything anybody sees on TV is for entertainment value. Sure, there's a level of realism, but it's TV, hence entertainment. You never see the stone cold paranormal show where everything's legit true, where they show people freaking out. They show people bona fide crying, blubbering messes, people getting injured. The after effect of something happening and it affecting somebody physically for weeks. They don't show these things. If there was
no, because they were scared the crap out of people.
They would. I'll tell you what, that's $1 million idea right there. Make a reality show of what it is and let people see. But that will never happen because there is no waiver.
Well, they don't.
There is no waiver to sign that releases anybody legally of any spiritual damage that affects you eternally. You know, imagine
right.
that
I mean,
lawsuit.
you know, you can. Well, yeah, but see, that's why, you know, we've been confronted to do a few things in that nature on that design, and I've always just said no, because if you can't let me do what I want to do, which is show the reality of it, you can't, because what happens is there's going to be, you know, Mama Sue sitting on her couch watching your show, and you show the legit reality of an investigation that just goes horribly wrong, and you could scar that person for life, which we understand, because now all of a sudden, well, I watched your show. It's kind of like the chick that, you know, drank coffee at McDonald's and spilled it and got a lawsuit out of it and won because it was hot.
Yeah.
Well, duh, coffee's hot.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like saying, hey, watch our paranormal TV show, hence paranormal reality TV show or whatever. So you're going to see things that are probably going to startle you, but that's probably why they don't do it, because, you know, Mama Sue's sitting on her couch and she's scarred for life because she's seen something that scared the crap out of her.
Well,
and now, oh, I'm going to sue you because I can't sleep for all the night.
There's a fine line between entertainment and something that nobody can tell you're wrong with. And when that happens and it upends and unroots thousands of years of belief systems on multiple continents and countries and you know, races, creeds, and colors, that is a problem. So we are going to go with the last question tonight. This is from overseas in Europe, in Germany.
Germany, huh?
Yep. And this is by an individual. And their question is, at times I wake up and I cannot move, but I am awake. What is going on? And I'll start out by answering this. This is commonly known as something called sleep paralysis, or depending on how it affects you, it could also be related to OBEs, as the acronym is, which stands for out of body experience, or another wording or phrase for this could be called astral projection. Sleep paralysis, by all definition, is the current state of where you physically cannot move a muscle, but consciously and mentally you are alert and wide awake.
It's also known as atonia.
Okay.
Atonia, so a brief loss of muscle control. So they call it sleep paralysis, but it's a condition marked by a brief loss of muscle control known as atonia.
Okay. Now,
and there's other two types of sleep paralysis, if you didn't know. There's an isolated sleep paralysis, which is basically, it's a sleep paralysis episode that are not connected to underlying diagnosis of narcolepsy or neurological disorder that prevents the brain from properly controlling wakefulness, which often leads to sleep paralysis. And then you have recurrent sleep paralysis, which is basically, it involves multiple sleep paralysis episodes over time. Recurrent sleep paralysis can be associated with narcolepsy. Now, I'm not going to go into the narcolepsy and the medical terms of it, but a lot of times you have to decide whether it is paranormal or not. So you could go into Because an astral projection, I'm an astral projector, and I'm going to stand on the other side of the fence from you on that one, because that to me is not really sleep paralysis. Astral projection is an outer body experience, and that's just a whole nother topic and discussion. But sleep paralysis, to answer their question, now it could be two things. It could be legit sleep paralysis, or it could be paranormal. Because the one thing that everybody always says they have an issue with that is that they feel like somebody's sitting on top of them and pinning them down, but they're awake. Their eyes are moving or whatever. They just can't move the rest of their body.
Mm-hmm.
So more than none, more times than any, it's going to be sleep paralysis. Means your body, your basically your head woke up, but your brain didn't tell the rest of the body to wake up. So you have muscle loss, you have all that. So you haven't had time for the rest of your brain to wake up and tell the other part of your body to move. But in the rare occasion, we have had the knowledge and the intel that tells us it was an entity sitting on top of somebody, actually pinning them down to the bed. So you can go from there if you like, but I just had to step in and give you a few examples.
That was that broad brush there of a few strokes of a little bit of everything. Yeah, you got the sleep paralysis aspect. You got the astral projection, which is, for all intents and purposes, being able to spiritually leave your body and stay connected to it. There's places called the astral planes, which are different levels, dimensions, hypothetically. And you can travel around and go do stuff. And you leave your body. Depending upon your methodology utilizing this practice, you get to a point where right as you're leaving your body or after the fact, you're at a heightened level state of awareness, and you're alert consciously and mentally, but yet you can't move your body. So that's why I brought up the astral projection aspect of that. And then
I can see that, because it falls along the hallucination lines.
Mm-hmm.
Like a VM, basically a VM hallucination,
right?
Which includes feelings of movement and outer body sensitivities.
And
but it's not. I don't think it's an actual outer body experience like astral projection would be. So it's kind of like when we talk about imprinting and residual. Remember I said that a lot of investigators think that a residual haunt is also an imprinting haunt. And I separate the two just because it needs to be separated. So that's why I said I kind of stand on the other side of the fence. Yes, I believe that, there is a hallucination of what can be considered of an outer body sensation as sleep paralysis, but astral projection is an actual outer body experience. So that's why, just to throw that out, why I see the two differently.
Okay. The third aspect could be an underlying medical diagnosis, or dosis, as you kind of touch base on. But from a spiritual metaphysical aspect, I think it could be, sleep paralysis tied into maybe astral projecting. Medically, Western philosophy, all that good stuff, it could be something medically related. As far as that goes. Now, why it happens, it depends on which way you go with it. Medically, it could be for a variety of reasons, unfortunately, as a byproduct of something or a precursor of something. Spiritually, on a metaphysical sense, energy-wise, because you have the innate ability to potentially maybe astral project, as far as that goes. I would highly encourage you to look up astral projection, look into it, and see what that entails. Anybody that's listening, if that sounds interesting to you, go for it. Look it up. The short and sweet version of it is being able to travel, leaving your body, but still being connected and going to different places and realms and realities and our current world and do things. But I'm not going to touch base on all that really, because that's a whole other genre and subject and modality altogether.
It is, and there's also, in case you didn't know, there's also an estimated 75% of sleep paralysis episodes involve the hallucinations that are distinct from typical dreams.
Right.
So there's basically, from what I used to research about sleep paralysis, it falls into three different categories of hallucinations, which could be an intruder hallucination, which involves the perception of a dangerous person or presence in the room. So that could fall into the paranormal aspect. Then you have what they call a chest pressure hallucination, which is basically, they call it an incubus hallucination. These episodes incite feelings of suffocation or the sensation that someone is sitting on your chest, which we just talked about.
You said incubus, or you said incubus or succubus?
No, incubus. So so basically, it's an incubus hallucination, but I'm not quite sure that they're using incubus in the term that we are thinking. It's just weird how they worded that. But these frequently occur in tandem with intruder hallucinations because of the tightness of the chest, feeling suffocated, like somebody's sitting on top of them. And then you have the VM hallucination, which is, I'm not going to pronounce this right, but it's vestibular motor hallucinations.
Vestibule?
It can include feelings. Yeah, I call it VM because it's vestibular motor hallucination, VM hallucinations. And this can include feelings of movement such as flying or outer body sensations. Again, you're dealing with a sensation instead of an actual outer body experience. To me, there's two different things. So those are three categories of the hallucinations that actually fall under sleep paralysis, and hence the word hallucination. So when you study astral projection, that's an actual thing that somebody does. Again, that's a whole nother topic, and that's why, again, I stand on the other side of the fence of that one, because astral projection is actually an outer body experience. It's something you actually do. It's not just a sensation. So maybe what it could be is, let's say a person is trying to astral project but can't. So they're like caught at the beginning of an astral projection but didn't finish. So it's a sensation maybe. Who knows? Just my opinion, if you get where I'm going with that.
Yep. I totally do. Well, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, you can get into sleep disorders. People that have problems sleeping, they have a higher rate of sleep paralysis. People with obstructive sleep apnea, circadian rhythm, they're starting to get into some really big words that my redneck butt can't describe. So,
hey, I respect that you. I respect that you're able to say it.
Yeah, well, dysregulation and nighttime leg cramps. Now, I've actually had nighttime leg cramps, and I just thought it was heat cramps from, not doing enough electrolytes during the daytime, and in the nighttime, I've had it. But chronic insomnia, it's people with these kind of things. It's found to be more common of them having sleep paralysis. Now, I've had chronic insomnia before because I was stressing out over certain things in my life at one point, but I've never woke up with sleep paralysis. I mean, I've never had sleep paralysis. Maybe because I've been an astral projector, I don't have sleep paralysis. I don't know, but I've never had sleep paralysis. ever. But you can get into mental health disorders and mental health conditions, post-traumatic stress, PTSD, something our vets, you know, a lot of our vets have.
Well, besides vets, though,
It's
just people in general that experienced a traumatic event can have PTSD also.
True.
So it's all across the spectrum.
True. Normal people can have PTSD as well.
Yep.
And others who have been exposed to physical and emotional distress.
Yep.
People with anxiety disorders, including panic disorder, you know, they're likely to experience the condition. Stopping alcohol or antidepressants can lead to a REM rebound, which also may cause sleep paralysis. So when you dig into sleep paralysis, there's a whole gang load of stuff you can talk about that deals with sleep paralysis, and it doesn't necessarily all tie into the paranormal. It's just I would say there's a small handful that ties into the paranormal, but mainly it's all medical.
Interesting. Well, that looks like all the time we have on this particular episode of questions from our wonderful listeners and about sleep paralysis.
I want to thank everybody. I want to thank everybody too for sending those in. Those are great questions.
Oh, without a doubt. We get questions weekly from listeners all over the world that spend the time to not only message us or email us, but also to really share things that are of a personal nature. Some people tell us that they've had experiences they've held onto their whole life, and after listening to us, they feel comfortable enough to say, hey, here's how it really is. Here's what I've experienced or witnessed. And they want to give us that information to see, A, if it helps us in any way, shape, or manner or form. But not only that, but also would like to maybe get some closure on something that they've experienced. And we definitely appreciate anybody that is ever willing to share any of their experiences with us so we can give them advice. And depending upon how things may happen, also to actually not only answer it via message or email, but also answer it within a podcast itself, and it'd be showcased or highlighted in one of our episodes like we did tonight. So and
give them a more understanding of whatever the situation is that they're asking us. They could be asking us because a friend of theirs, has this issue, and they're just not the type of person to try to bring that out to our attention. So it could be a friend of theirs that listens to our podcast and says, hey, I just got this question. What, and they don't have to point out their friend like this. Some of this, they're pretty much saying, hey, this is the question. So yeah, we've encouraged since the first podcast to email us any questions or photos that you've taken, you want us to take a look at to see what we think about the photo. Anything. It's just, again, these are our opinions, and these opinions are based on our experiences. So yeah, we might be a little off on some things that we say, but what is the truth, to be honest with you? Anybody can go around and say all kinds of things about certain things and pick out the wrongs and rights. But I'll just say, if you want an honest opinion about what we think about it, then yes, feel free to keep sending in questions, because those are some great questions right there.
Oh, they are, most definitely. So for anybody that does have any questions, please feel free to email us at info@theoryparanormal.com, and we will address whatever questions you have and get back to you promptly. So just want to say thank you again for all the wonderful listeners listening to this podcast, as you do. And if there is anybody new joining our podcast for the first time, as I said in the very beginning of the podcast, my name is Pax. My paranormal partner in crime, in reference to investigating, is Dalton. And we have been investigating for quite a long time within the paranormal world, and decided to put a podcast show on just to tell everybody exactly how it really is with no smoke or mirrors, and to give you the unbiased truth of what happens each time we investigate or our experiences. So that will be it for today. And as always, don't be afraid to ask questions.